And on today's Business Matters, fears of job loss from tariffs have begun as Stellantis has announced layoffs. The maker of Ram trucks and Jeep said it will temporarily lay off 900 workers at 5 facilities in the U.S. It's also temporarily pausing production at an assembly plant in Mexico and Canada. And this comes as automakers try to figure out how to respond to a 25% tariff on imported vehicles that took effect last week. The United Auto Workers Union responded by saying the company has the money, capacity, and workforce to employ thousands more in the state. They call the layoffs unnecessary. The smell of fresh Italian coffee is going to fill the air as Lavazza said it plans to press forward with expansion in the U.S. Chief Executive Antonio Barravale said the U.S. has immense market size compared to the rest of the world. Barravale explained the company is ready to increase output, but now needs to assess the potential impact of tariffs on Brazilian beans. Brazil is the world's leading coffee exporter, and the U.S. has imposed a 10% tariff on imports from the country. Right now, the group produces about half of what it sells in the States locally at its plant in Pennsylvania. Open for discussion, the Trump administration is talking to all major global trading partners about ways to bring down new reciprocal tariffs. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick says other countries will have to change their rules on importing U.S. goods. Lutnick said he does not believe countries would be exempt from the tariffs and warned retaliating would not be effective. But he said the administration would discuss ways to treat U.S. goods more fairly. An example Lutnick gave was eliminating trade barriers such as value-added tax, which he said act as subsidies for exports. President Trump also signed an executive order yesterday targeting Chinese imports. The measure closes a loophole that previously allowed duty-free shipments under $800. In February, Trump temporarily paused tariffs on low-cost packages from China and Hong Kong, while the Commerce Department developed stricter enforcement measures. Starting May 2nd, the order imposes a 30% duty or $25 per item on what's known as de minimis shipments, citing China's role in synthetic opioid trafficking. That amount rises to $50 per item on June 1st. Carriers must now report shipment details to U.S. Customs and hold international bonds to ensure duty payments. Experts say Chinese e-commerce giants like Shein and Temu have exploited the exemption, gaining an unfair advantage over American retailers. Japanese drink giant Suntory is reassessing its spirits strategy to avoid new U.S. tariffs.
So we will produce and try to sell locally. That's the key strategy with the tariffs. We have to create the demand. So we should focus on brand investment so that our brand condition stay healthy.
Now, Suntory's soft drinks are produced mainly in their destination markets, but President Nobuhiro Tori says spirits like tequila must be made in their native lands, and that makes them more vulnerable to duties. He says that means making bourbon for the American market and Japanese whiskey for consumption in its home market. The beverage giant said it's looking to shift where it markets and sell spirits across the globe. Japanese companies like Suntory have spent decades expanding their global footprint to hedge against an aging and shrinking consumer market at home. A vow from Volvo's new CEO, the Swedish car maker said it would produce more vehicles in the U.S. On top of responding to new auto tariff, the company is ramping up its regionalization efforts. The car maker unexpectedly replaced its CEO over the weekend with its former leader, Håkan Samuelsson. He told investors the company is well prepared in China and Europe, but needs to be better prepared in the U.S. to get around the import tariff. Samuelsson added that the car maker expects to ramp up production at its South Carolina plant. Volvo has been struggling lately. Its share price has fallen to record lows amid a slowdown in demand for EVs and global uncertainty. The NHTSA is letting off the brakes on a Zoox investigation after Amazon's robotaxi unit updated its software. The U.S. National Highway Traffic Safety Administration has closed its probe into more than 250 Zoox vehicles. The agency launched the investigation after the automated vehicles braked unexpectedly in two rear-end crashes that caused injuries. Amazon's self-driving car unit issued a recall to update the software. Zoox said this addressed the braking issue that made the vehicles brake unexpectedly when bicyclists or motorcyclists were near or approaching rapidly. To deal with economic uncertainty, Ford is announcing a new incentive program called From America for America. It offers customers an assortment of Ford vehicles at the same price that Ford employees pay. NTD Sean Marshall has more.
Ford is now offering employee pricing to customers on a number of their 2024 and 2025 model year vehicles. It's the discounted rate available to Ford workers. The program is called the From America for America plan, and it's available to all U.S. shoppers.
I think that's one of the things that people aren't thinking about. Should I buy a car now or not? Well, there's a couple options.
Auto industry expert Lauren Fitch caught up with NTD to give her perspective on Ford's latest auto deal.
You can buy a car now, but note that any car that's made 50% of their components are U.S. made and the vehicle is final assembled here in the U.S. There's no tariff. Nothing's going to change.
The new deal applies to quite a bit of Ford's lineup, including vehicles like the Mustang Mach-E and Maverick, which are built in Mexico. Models that don't qualify for the Ford employee pricing deal are the Raptor models of the Ranger, Bronco, and F-150. The specialty Mustang and Bronco models, the redesigned 2025 Expedition and Lincoln Navigator, and the Super Duty lineup.
Where the tariff changes is if a vehicle is 100% made in another country, like a Ferrari, where prices are going to increase 10%, or a Porsche. If you're going to buy a 911, you probably don't care the prices are going to go up 7%. And those are different types of buyers. Your average buyer is going to be looking at cars that are made elsewhere.
Cox Automotive reports that Ford's dealer lots are more stocked than the industry average. Ford had more than 4 months of inventory in February, higher than the industry average of nearly 3 months. Ford says the employee pricing promotion will run until June 2nd. Sean Marshall, NTD News.
Volkswagen is telling its U.S. dealers it will break down the cost of the new tariff on the stickers consumers look at while shopping for cars. About a third of Volkswagens sold in the U.S. last year were made here, so those sales will be unaffected. But other models will be hit with the 25% tariff on imported vehicles that went into effect on Thursday. Volkswagen imports the Jetta, Taos, and Tiguan from a plant in Mexico, plus other models from Germany. Now, the tariffs could add thousands of dollars to the cost of all imported cars. And China's credit rating has been downgraded. Global ratings agency Fitch lowered the country's long-term foreign currency credit rating. And that means the agency views China as less likely to repay its debts in a foreign currency over the long term. A lower credit rating may impact the communist country negatively. China may have to pay higher interest rates when borrowing money from other countries or investors. Also, foreign investors may see China as a riskier place to invest. The rating agency said that China's debt is expected to grow faster than its economy in the coming years. And this is due to U.S. trade tensions as well as weak demand and falling domestic prices. China's currency, the yuan, dropped today to its lowest level in 7 weeks. Fitch said it did not incorporate the latest U.S. reciprocal tariffs into its forecast of China's debt. Now to Thailand, where government agencies are investigating the Chinese companies that helped build the collapsed government building in Bangkok. The Thai Ministry of Commerce is focusing on China Railway Engineering No. 10 and Xinke Yuan Steel. More companies linked to the construction project are also under investigation. The State Audit Office in Bangkok collapsed during the Myanmar earthquake on March 28th. The high-rise building was still under construction but fell while other buildings remained standing. The Iron and Steel Institute of Thailand found the steel used was substandard. Initial investigations into the Chinese companies found the possible violation of many Thai laws. In the run-up to President Trump's tariff announcement, investors were optimistic that clarity on tariff policies would help the U.S. stock market stabilize. But after the tariffs, U.S. investors were caught off guard by the depth of the tariffs. Earlier, I discussed the situation with Christian Briggs, economist and CEO of Hart Asset Management. So it looks like what we got in tariffs is higher than what markets had expected. What's your angle on the market decline?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show. But yeah, you're right. The whole markets were a little bit taken back by the amount of the percentage of tariffs yesterday. I think everybody thought, oh, wow, that was kind of at the high range. You know, we're looking at a little bit of fear, a little bit of the unknown charted waters. But at the end of the day, the White House is not wrong.
Is it looking increasingly like there's not going to be a lot of upside for markets this year, Christian?
I think we're going to see a little bit more on the downside, a little bit of a pause and a kind of a breath in the market. Let's look at a couple of the statistical numbers that we're looking at. We're seeing a slowdown in that lower to middle class markets. The wages didn't keep quite up as much as they had hoped for. The inflation did take a bigger bite out of people's paychecks. We are seeing some of the PE ratios come down, and I think the markets are going to take a pause. But remember, like any long-term investor, you always look for good opportunities to re-enter the market. So declines are great. It's just another level of entry points. And quite frankly, we needed the pause. But at the end of the day, we will see a declining equities markets. But the good news is that could bring down the interest rates, which what would that mean? That means it could spark a resurgence in home buying at the lower rates. Maybe not quite this year, but certainly next year, we could see home buying back in a way that hasn't been seen in the last couple of years.
Will this impact company earnings?
Oh, absolutely. No question. We're going to definitely see a decline in the price to earnings ratios on these stocks, which probably should have been. A lot of these earnings are going to come down. The consumer is going to slow down on their spending. But again, it's a mitigated risk that if you start to look at the long-term value, the short-term pain could equal a really long-term gain. But yes, we're going to see a pause on the earnings, and we're going to see a continuation of declines. Consumer spending will slow down.
What's your assessment on the risk of recession?
Oh, we're in a recession already in the bottom half of America. There's no doubt about it. See, a recession is the contracting of the GDP, but also remember, we also have a personal GDP. So like your income, my income, it's kind of a household GDP. The bottom 25 to maybe 40% of America has been in a contraction now for 2.5 years. Their wages did not keep up with the inflationary pressures that the Biden administration put on the American public. Now we're starting to see it at the top level. When Restoration Hardware gives warning on not only its current but its future quarters, and the stock is down about 40% today, that's a high-end market. The furniture at Restoration Hardware is not cheap. It's very nice quality, mind you, and the tariffs will have a negative effect on them. But they were already in decline. Sales are down, point blank, and that's the top 2 or 3% of America that buys at RH.
Okay, you talked about long-term gain. What are those?
So the long-term gain is real simple. When we manufacture milk, when dairy products here in America go to Canada like milk, there's over a 300% tariff on our milk going into Canada. That's crazy. So the long-term gain is that Canada is going to come to the table. They're going to say, okay, maybe we were playing a little too aggressive on your milk products and many other things. Trump's telling everybody around the world, come to the table. There's no more tariffs that you're going to charge us for our manufacturing. So the gain is going to be renegotiating the deal like Trump did in his first book, The Art of the Deal. He's going to re-examine all the tariffs. Very interesting yesterday when Trump showed exactly what was going to be done. As you can remember in past shows, I said, I don't see him using a grenade. I see him surgically directing tariffs on specific items. That's the long-term gain. Level the playing field on the items you can. Don't make the trading partners such an adversary conflict that you don't have the good communication. So the gain is going to be for the consumer to make the right choice to buy manufactured goods in America, bring the jobs back, be a competitive landscape, and that's exactly where the gain is going to come from.
All right, Christian, it's always good to talk to you. That's our time today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Zelle shut down its standalone app Tuesday, but the popular person-to-person money transferring service itself is not going away. Zelle warned of the shutdown last year, explained that only 2% of its transactions happen on the app, saying a vast majority of Zelle's 151 million users access the service through their own bank's website or app. and that process will be unaffected. In 2017, about 30 banks created Zelle to rival popular payment apps like Venmo, Cash Pay, and Apple Pay. Zelle created its own app to provide access for people whose banks didn't yet participate. But adoption soared over the years, with more than 2,200 banks and credit unions now using Zelle. To keep using Zelle services, app-only users must re-enroll through an app from their participating bank or credit union. The Supreme Court has upheld the FDA's block on access to flavored vaping products. In a unanimous decision yesterday, the court agreed that flavors like pink lemonade and Rainbow Road were geared toward minors. The FDA reports that 19% of high school students and 4.7% of middle school students vaped in 2020, a far higher share than students who smoked. It's a partial win for the FDA as the court sent the case down to a lower court for further review. Also, the vaping companies are allowed to reapply for the FDA for approval of their products. Hollywood stars celebrated Amazon's big debut at CinemaCon. The company that also runs Prime Video is making a major push into the movie industry. Here's more.
Hollywood stars turned on the charm in Las Vegas on Wednesday to celebrate Amazon's big debut at CinemaCon. The company, which also runs Prime Video, is making a major push into the movie industry. Over the past decade, Amazon released a handful of films in cinemas each year, but now plans to increase that number to at least 15 annually by 2027, with 14 releases already scheduled for 2026. Director Gavin O'Connor praised Amazon for prioritizing theatrical releases over streaming.
Streamers now are the gatekeepers, and if they're not putting movies out in the theater, I mean, this stuff can go away. Like, no joke, it can go away. So it's their responsibility. In the history of our business, like they have to keep the flame going, so keep the light on. So I'm deeply grateful, but they should be doing it.
Theater owners hope the company will fill a void left when Walt Disney acquired the Fox movie studio in 2019. Box office returns in the United States and Canada remain below pre-pandemic levels. Amazon bought the MGM studio and its vast movie library in 2022 and recently took creative control of the James Bond franchise. The company did not provide any clues about who it will cast to play the famous British spy.
Well, you know, never say never. Isn't that one of the Bond movies? I don't know. Never say never.
Now there's good news for people who want to eat 12 inches worth of nachos. Subway is adding foot-long nachos to its sidekicks menu. The sandwich chain has joined forces with Doritos for this dish. It features nacho cheese-flavored Doritos with cheddar cheese, jalapenos, tomatoes, red onions, and a chipotle sauce. Customers who need a little more can add chicken or steak to the platter. Subway officials say this is another step the company is taking to provide convenient food at an affordable price. And there have been a lot of unusual ice cream flavors over the years. Wasabi, for example, Mountain Dew, and even pizza. But would you try a snail and garlic infused ice cream on your next flight to France? The ice cream even comes with crunchy pieces of sugar to invoke the texture of snail shell. EasyJet created the escargot-inspired treat as part of a series to generate buzz for its new London South End base. There are 4 other flavors, each inspired by a different destination. They include cacio e pepe, a traditional peppery pasta dish inspired by the city of Pisa, and some more traditional dessert flavors like spicy tangerine, which is packed with apricot and spices. President Trump says the operation is over and the patient is healing. The day after announcing expansive new tariffs on countries across the globe, Trump posted, "The prognosis is that the patient will be far stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before." The president is referring to the United States and its economic recovery after tariff implementation. He ended the post with his signature "Make America Great Again" slogan. Australian beef farmers say Trump's tariffs could drive up the price of U.S. hamburgers, as some say they would pass on the extra costs of tariffs to the American consumer. Take a look.
They are a key ingredient in a beloved US cuisine, but are about to become more expensive. Australian beef farmers, traders and industry groups said on Thursday they would pass on the extra costs of 10% US tariffs to the American consumer.
Is they are completely reliant on our grass-fed beef.
With their product prized by US fast food chains, Cattle Australia chair Gary Edwards says hungry customers will feel the impact.
It's simply going to push up the price of food. And that's really not a win for anyone. It's an inflationary impact, and I can't imagine that the American consumer is going to like paying more for their burgers or their steaks over the foreseeable future.
With an identical tariff applied to fellow market competitors, livestock agent Dougal McDowell doesn't see the logic.
So if we're all at 10%, it really doesn't change anything. What it does make, however, the commodity that's going into America a lot dearer for their own consumers.
US fast food chains use Australian beef for its lower fat content. It is then combined with fattier US beef to produce hamburgers with the ideal fat content. Australia exports $2.52 billion of beef annually to the United States, its largest market, but has banned fresh US beef since 2003 due to the detection of mad cow disease in US cattle. Edwards says there would be no compromise on Australia's biosecurity laws.
They have market access already to Australia. They have simply chosen not to meet the compliance requirements.
Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese said on Thursday the government would provide support to industries impacted by the US tariffs to sell into alternative markets, something graziers like James Fitzpatrick in the cattle yard want to see.
There's a worldwide market out there. Why are we focusing just on the one market?
Canada's Prime Minister today responding to the tariffs announced by President Trump. Prime Minister Mark Carney held a press conference moments ago.
I'm announcing that the Government of Canada will be responding by matching the U.S. approach, with 25% tariffs on all vehicles imported from the United States that are not compliant with CUSMA, our North American Free Trade Agreement.
Carney also said the new tariffs would not apply to car parts and would not affect vehicle content from Mexico. He previously announced retaliatory tariffs will remain in effect. Carney today also said that Canada will fight the U.S. tariffs until they're lifted. According to the Prime Minister, the relationship with the United States is not the same as it used to be, which he called a tragedy.